Behind the gates of Hancock Park sits a mansion that witnessed both Nat King Cole's triumphs and Hollywood's cruelest whispers. The velvet-voiced legend didn't just redefine American music. He shattered barriers, faced ugly discrimination, and built an acre-spanning estate that became a symbol of resilience. From his timeless hits echoing through its halls to the untold stories of his private struggles, this is more than a house tour. It's a journey through the highs, heartbreaks, and hidden chapters of a music icon's life. In September 1964, Nat King Cole, already one of America's most beloved singers, began to experience troubling health issues. He noticed unexplained weight loss and persistent back pain, symptoms that he brushed off as part of the grueling schedule he maintained. While performing at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, the pain became so intense that he collapsed backstage. Even then, Cole was reluctant to slow down. Friends and colleagues pleaded with him to seek medical attention, but he remained convinced that his music and obligations to his fans came first. By December, while working in San Francisco, the reality could no longer be ignored. Persuaded at last to undergo tests, Cole received a devastating diagnosis: an advanced malignant tumor on his left lung. A heavy cigarette smoker for most of his life, Cole was told bluntly that he had lung cancer and only a few months left to live. Yet even in the face of such news, he refused to retreat quietly. Against the advice of his doctors, he returned to the studio. Between December 1st and 3rd, he recorded what would become his final album, Love, accompanied by an orchestra conducted by Ralph Carmichael. Cole's daughter would later recall that he completed these sessions out of deep concern for his family's financial security, determined that they would be cared for even after his passing. On December 7th, 1964, Cole entered St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, and cobalt therapy began 3 days later in an effort to slow the cancer's progress. His absence was felt immediately in the entertainment world. At the grand opening of the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion at the Los Angeles Music Center on December 12th, Frank Sinatra performed in Cole's place, a poignant sign that his condition was already critical. Over the New Year holiday, however, Cole was briefly released from the hospital. At home, he was deeply moved to see the hundreds of thousands of cards and letters sent by admirers from around the world. The outpouring of love demonstrated just how profoundly his music had touched people's lives. In early January 1965, Cole returned to the hospital as his health worsened. During this period, he quietly sent $5,000, equivalent to over $51,000 in today's dollars, to actress and singer Gunilla Hutton, with whom he had been romantically involved since early 1964. Hutton, however, called Cole's wife, Maria, urging her to divorce him. Maria confronted Nat about the affair, and he ended the relationship with Hutton. The severity of his illness brought a reconciliation between husband and wife. Cole even vowed that, if he recovered, he would use his fame to publicly warn others against smoking, acknowledging the role his long-term habit had played in his illness. On January 25, 1965, surgeons removed Cole's entire left lung in a desperate attempt to prolong his life. Just a week later, on February 1st, tragedy struck again when Nat's father died of heart problems, compounding the emotional strain on the family. Throughout this time, Cole's publicists worked tirelessly to maintain an optimistic narrative. Billboard magazine assured readers that Nat King Cole has successfully come through a serious operation and the future looks bright for the master to resume his career again. In reality, those closest to Cole knew the prognosis was grim. On Valentine's Day, February 14th, Cole and Maria shared a bittersweet moment of normalcy. They left St. John's briefly, taking a quiet drive along the sea. The following morning, Monday, February 15th, 1965, Nat King Cole passed away at the age of 45. His death marked the end of an era in American music, silencing a voice that had defined elegance, warmth, and crossover appeal in popular song. Cole's funeral was held 3 days later, on February 18th at St. James's Episcopal Church on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. 400 mourners filled the church, while thousands more gathered outside. The day before, members of the public had been allowed to file past his coffin, paying their respects to a man whose music had touched millions. The list of honorary pallbearers reflected Cole's stature in both the entertainment world and American culture. Robert F. Kennedy, Count Basie, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Johnny Mathis, George Burns, Danny Thomas, Jimmy Durante, Alan Livingston, Frankie Lane, Steve Allen, and California Governor Pat Brown. The eulogy was delivered by comedian Jack Benny, a close friend. Benny's words captured the essence of Nat King Cole's life and character. Nat Cole was a man who gave so much and still had so much to give. He gave it in song, in friendship to his fellow man, devotion to his family. He was a star, a tremendous success as an entertainer, an institution. But he was an even greater success as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a friend. After the service, Cole's remains were interred in the Freedom Mausoleum at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, a serene resting place for a man whose velvet voice and gentle charisma remain unforgettable. Even decades later, Love, the album he recorded while facing his mortality, continues to symbolize not just his artistry, but also his remarkable courage and devotion to those he loved. After Nat King Cole's death, what many people are interested in is his real estate properties. First, let's talk about his childhood home. The Coles' home on St. John Street was typical of working-class black families in Montgomery at the time. A small, functional dwelling with narrow wooden siding, a front porch for summer evenings, and a warm, bustling interior. It was not an affluent neighborhood, but it was a vibrant one, full of church life, gospel music, and the sounds of jazz and blues that wafted through the community. Neighbors and relatives later recalled young Nathaniel as a shy but observant boy, already drawn to the piano keys that his mother played for Sunday services. Though the family's stay in Montgomery would be brief, moving to Chicago when Nat was still a child, the St. John Street house represents the beginning of his extraordinary journey. Local reporting and state historical references have consistently identified the building as the definitive birthplace of Nat King Cole. To ensure that this vital piece of cultural heritage would not be lost, Montgomery's leaders and preservationists took steps to safeguard the house as Nat's fame grew. Over the decades, redevelopment pressures and changes to the city's landscape threatened its original site, but civic pride prevailed. At some point, prior to 2015, the structure was carefully relocated to the grounds of Alabama State University, ASU. The university, an institution with its own proud history tied to the black community and civil rights activism, became the steward of Cole's childhood home. Moving the building ensured that it would not be demolished or forgotten, and positioned it where students, locals, and tourists could connect with the roots of a man who reshaped American music. The preservation of the house culminated in a significant moment in 2015, when a formal historic marker dedication took place on the ASU campus. Local newspapers covered the event, emphasizing how the dedication tied Montgomery's cultural heritage to Nat King Cole's worldwide legacy. The marker provides context about Cole's early life, describing him as a Montgomery native whose artistry crossed racial boundaries during an era of segregation. ASU's stewardship underscores the importance of linking Alabama's rich musical history with its educational institutions and community pride. Today, the Birthplace House stands not merely as a preserved building, but as a museum-like visitor attraction and an educational resource. Visitors to Alabama State University can see the small clapboard structure, now stabilized and maintained, along with the historic plaque that details Cole's birth and the city's significance in his formative years. The location has become a point of pilgrimage for fans, historians, and music scholars who wish to understand the humble origins of one of the 20th century's most iconic performers. For Montgomery residents, especially within the African American community, the house is more than a historic artifact. It is a reminder of their city's contributions to American culture and a testament to perseverance amid adversity. The Coles family lived through the challenges of the segregated South, and the young boy who began life on St. John Street would eventually break barriers in the entertainment industry, becoming one of the first black performers to host a nationally televised variety show. His early environment, shaped by the supportive community and rich musical traditions of Montgomery, set the stage for the artistry and grace he later brought to the world. The preservation effort also speaks to a larger movement within Montgomery to honor the city's layered cultural history. While much of Montgomery's historical narrative focuses on civil rights milestones and political leaders, the Nat King Cole birthplace adds a vital artistic dimension. It tells a story not just of struggle and progress, but also of creativity, family, and music. Alabama State University has continued to use the site as part of its cultural programming, integrating Nat King Cole's story into broader discussions of African American art, history, and education. The historical marker and the building's presence serve as a tangible link between past and present, reminding visitors that even the most celebrated figures often come from the humblest beginnings. For fans who know Cole primarily through the polished recordings of Unforgettable, Love, or Mona Lisa, seeing the birthplace house is a moving experience. It bridges the gap between the polished entertainer and the little boy named Nathaniel, sitting at his mother's piano bench, discovering the magic of melody. St. John Street may no longer be Cole's address, but its spirit lives on within the ASU campus, where the echoes of gospel hymns and jazz improvisations still seem to linger in the air. After that, when the Coles family left Montgomery, Alabama, they settled in Chicago's Bronzeville neighborhood, a thriving cultural hub on the city's south side. Their new home, a 3-flat apartment building at 4023 South Vincennes Avenue, would become the backdrop for much of Nat King Cole's formative years. Today, preservation groups and Chicago cultural historians repeatedly identify this building as a key site in Cole's early life and career. Far more than a simple residence, it represents the place where a shy boy named Nathaniel Coles would grow into a musician of extraordinary skill and charisma. The Bronzeville area, often referred to as the Black Metropolis, was a dynamic community during the 1920s and 1930s. It was a haven for African Americans who had migrated north during the Great Migration, seeking better opportunities and freedom from the harsh realities of Jim Crow laws in the South. Bronzeville pulsed with jazz clubs, theaters, newspapers, and businesses owned by black entrepreneurs. Streets like State and 35th bustled with life, and music was everywhere, pouring out of clubs, church doors, and open windows on summer nights. For a young Nat King Cole, this environment provided both inspiration and opportunity. The 3-flat at 4023 South Vincennes was typical of South Side architecture, a sturdy, brick-faced structure designed to house multiple families. Inside, the Coles family's apartment was modest but filled with music. Nat's mother, Perlina, played organ for church services, and his father, Reverend Edward Coles, was a Baptist minister who encouraged his children to take part in religious and community life. Nat was particularly drawn to the upright piano in the apartment, practicing for hours and showing a precocious talent for melody. As Nat entered his teenage years, Bronzeville itself was entering a golden age of jazz and blues. Clubs like the Sunset Cafe and the Savoy Ballroom attracted legendary performers such as Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Earl Hines. These influences seeped into Nat's style even as he received formal piano instruction. Chicago's schools and churches also offered opportunities for performance, and Nat was quick to take advantage of them. He played at local gatherings and for church services, honing not only his technique, but also the understated charm that would later become his hallmark as a performer. By the late 1930s, Cole was venturing beyond his neighborhood to play professionally. But it was in Bronzeville, living at 4023 South Vincennes Avenue, that he first organized small jazz combos, experimented with new sounds, and developed the skills that would set him apart from other young musicians. Stories from neighbors and acquaintances suggest that the Coles household was often a gathering place for music making, with Nat's piano as the centerpiece. Preservation groups in Chicago emphasize that the 3 flat on Vincennes is not merely a footnote, but a vital landmark in the city's cultural history. Chicago's cultural guides and historic preservation write-ups frequently highlight the building as a documented former residence of Nat King Cole. In recent years, local preservationists have called attention to its significance, arguing that Bronzeville's architectural and cultural heritage deserves protection, not just as bricks and mortar, but as a living reminder of the city's contribution to American music. The Bronzeville neighborhood itself has undergone changes since Nat's time there. Urban renewal projects, economic shifts, and gentrification have altered its landscape, but many residents and historians remain committed to preserving its rich history. The Vincennes Avenue building, while still privately owned, is part of this broader narrative, a tangible connection to a period when Bronzeville was at the heart of African-American cultural achievement. For modern visitors tracing the life of Nat King Cole, standing outside 4023 South Vincennes Avenue can be a powerful experience. While the building's exterior reflects the modest architecture of its era, the stories it holds give it a special resonance. This was the home where a young boy absorbed the sounds of jazz drifting from nearby clubs, where he practiced scales late into the night, and where the seeds of his future stardom were planted. Next, in 1948, at the height of his early fame, Nat King Cole made a purchase that would place him at the center of one of Los Angeles's most notorious battles over housing segregation. He and his wife, Maria Cole, bought a stately brick Tudor-style mansion at 401 South Muirfield Road in the upscale neighborhood of Hancock Park. Reportedly purchased for around $85,000, a significant sum at the time, the home was large, elegant, and ideally situated among tree-lined streets and well-manicured lawns. For Nat, the move symbolized success. After years of grueling tours and tireless work as a performer, he had earned a place among the city's elite. But the reaction from some of Hancock Park's white residents was anything but welcoming. The Coles' arrival provoked an ugly backlash rooted in racism and fear of integration. Soon after they moved in, burned crosses appeared on their lawn, an unmistakable act of intimidation. Threats were sent to the family, and even their dog was reportedly poisoned. Acts documented in both contemporary press reports and later biographies. The incidents underscored the virulent resistance many black families faced when trying to move into previously all-white neighborhoods, even in a supposedly progressive city like Los Angeles. Nat King Cole, known for his calm demeanor and quiet dignity, did not respond with anger or retreat. Instead, he refused to be intimidated, declaring simply, "I'm not in the business of moving out of neighborhoods." Despite the harassment, the Coles remained in their Muirfield Road home, raising their family and entertaining guests. The mansion itself reflected the couple's refined tastes, a classic Tudor design with brickwork, steeply pitched gables, and rich wood interiors. Biographers describe warm living spaces filled with family photographs and music. Maria was an accomplished singer herself, and the couple often hosted gatherings where music was a central part of the evening. This home became a refuge for Nat during the intense touring and recording schedules of the 1950s. Hancock Park, one of Los Angeles's most prestigious neighborhoods, had long been known for restrictive covenants that explicitly barred Black, Jewish, and Asian families from purchasing homes. By the late 1940s, many of those covenants had been declared unenforceable by court rulings. But informal pressure and intimidation continued. Nat's decision to purchase the Muirfield mansion directly challenged these unspoken rules. His perseverance, remaining in the face of hostility, has been recognized by historians as a significant moment in the slow dismantling of housing segregation in Los Angeles. The racial harassment did not fully subside even after the initial incidents. Some neighbors reportedly attempted legal action to force him out or pressured city officials to intervene. But Nat, who had broken barriers in the music industry by becoming one of the first black artists to host a national television variety show, refused to yield. His quiet defiance, combined with his unassailable talent and popularity, made it harder for critics to vilify him publicly. Over time, as the Coles remained steadfast, some neighbors' attitudes began to soften. The Muirfield Road mansion was far more than just a residence. It was a symbol of Nat King Cole's values: grace under pressure, commitment to his family, and belief in the right to live freely regardless of race. Maria and Nat created a warm, loving household there for their children, and the home became the place they always returned to after tours, television tapings, and concert appearances. For Nat, it represented stability amid the whirlwind of fame. During the golden age of mid-century Hollywood, Palm Springs became the playground of America's entertainment elite. For Nat King Cole, whose warm baritone voice and graceful stage presence had made him one of the most celebrated performers of the 20th century, a desert retreat offered both privacy and rejuvenation. Multiple Palm Springs historical guides, real estate references, and cultural travel write-ups identify 1258 North Rose Avenue in the Vista Las Palmas neighborhood as Cole's vacation and second home, a place where he could escape the spotlight, gather with his family, and enjoy the tranquil beauty of the Coachella Valley. The Vista Las Palmas area itself is legendary. Nestled at the base of the San Jacinto Mountains, it became famous for its distinctive mid-century modern architecture and its allure for Hollywood royalty. During the 1950s and 1960s, stars such as Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Marilyn Monroe, and Sammy Davis Jr. all maintained homes nearby. The neighborhood embodied glamour mixed with desert serenity: sprawling swimming pools framed by mountain views, low-slung modernist designs, and palm trees swaying under the desert sun. For Cole, whose demanding recording schedule and touring life left little time for rest, a weekend in Palm Springs was a chance to reconnect with his wife, Maria, and their children away from the pressures of Los Angeles and the racial hostility he sometimes faced even as a beloved celebrity. The Rose Avenue property was not Nat's primary residence. That distinction belonged to his Hancock Park mansion on Muirfield Road in Los Angeles. But it became a cherished getaway. Accounts from local historians and tour guides describe the house as a classic mid-century build with clean lines, large glass windows, and an inviting pool that overlooked the rugged mountains. Palm Springs' dry climate was thought to be healthful and invigorating, a key selling point for entertainers who valued their voices and stamina. For Cole, the home symbolized both a reward for his hard-earned success and a safe place to enjoy simple pleasures: barbecues, poolside lounging, and informal jam sessions with friends. Nat's visits to the desert were not just for relaxation. Palm Springs in those years was a hub for informal music-making and social gatherings. Entertainers frequently hosted parties that blended Hollywood sophistication with laid-back desert charm. While there is no documented record of large-scale performances at the Rose Avenue home, locals and guides note that Cole's presence in the community added to the area's cultural richness. Friends and family would often gather around the piano, and Nat, ever generous with his talent, was known to play casually for those close to him. The property's connection to the Cole family extended beyond Nat's lifetime. Palm Springs preservation lists and legacy references suggest that Natalie Cole, Nat's Grammy-winning daughter, was linked to the house in later years, either through visits or as part of her family heritage. For Natalie, whose own career paid homage to her father through songs like Unforgettable, the Rose Avenue home was not just a piece of real estate, but a tangible connection to the father she had lost too soon. Its walls had witnessed family laughter and quiet moments of respite, and for Natalie, it held the echoes of a golden age in her family's history. What do you think about Nat King Cole? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.